Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Have you ever been driving along and seen something called a mountain pass and kind of gone, ooh, I don't know if I can make that or not? Well, today I want to show you one particular mountain pass that you can make. Now, with a few limitations, of course. Today we're going to be riding along in Dimples on a scenic drive up the Independence Pass. This pass we're going to be starting off at the difficult campground area, which is a very nice National Forest campground that's just this direction. And we're going to actually be going all the way over to the Twin Lakes. This is a wonderful drive to come out and see the beauty of Colorado. However, I did say there were a few limitations. Number one, if you are over 35 feet, they say no, you cannot go. Number two, this pass is not always open, so make sure that you check in the major connecting cities to see if it's open when you come. Now, with that said, it's time for us to crawl inside and get on the road. I'm going to be showing you some of the views and some of the stops along the way. Now, as you can see, as the road starts out, not too bad, but then we start getting into some narrow places where it's a single lane. And with that, you have some traffic lights. This is why the length comes into play, because not everybody can make it around these turns. Now, typically while we're waiting at this light, it's usually no more than 10 minutes, but what we're looking for is the oncoming traffic to come through this little narrow stretch right here. And after they come through, the light will turn green and it will be our turn. In the meantime, we'll have a little line collecting behind us, but look at this amazing view. The passes through Colorado are gorgeous, and there are more of them than you would think that are actually accessible for the everyday person. Looky here. Here they come. Just after the road actually turns back into two lanes, you get close to a trailhead parking area, and then you also have some overflow on the side here. It's absolutely beautiful, and we're still at a relatively low altitude for this particular scenic pass. Now, I always like to share a couple of tips on our little scenic drives, and so the first one that I will definitely be sharing with you all today is get gas either in Twin Lakes or in Aspen. It just makes you feel a lot more confident when you are closer to the top of your fuel than the bottom when you're going up these mountain passes, especially considering that as you go up, it can quickly suck down, and as you go down, it can give you a false sense of security as your gas tank kind of peters there. Another thing I would definitely suggest is to turn off your air conditioner. It sometimes can get kind of warm in the summertime, but turning off your air conditioner can actually save your engine from overheating. So turn off the air. It's not that big of a deal, just roll down the windows. Anyway, back to the roadway we go. It's a gorgeous day here, and we have several miles of scenic pass still to go. Sometimes along the pass, you just kind of have to take what you can get. This is a tiny little pull-off that you can take to get a perfect view of the crystal clear water. So beautiful. There are some little pull-offs like this kind of periodically, so keep your eyes open. Okay, back on the road we go again. Yeah, this is gonna be a great day, guys. This is gonna be a great day. Along this scenic pass, we have tons of different day use areas that you can stop off at. This one, for example, has hiking trails that you can go down to, some really cool little caves. There's fishing. There are some beautiful views and some wildlife watching kind of later in the evening also. So again, scenic pass, accessible to us all. Love it. A little further along and we have another section of one-lane highway. Now I will say this, some of the scenic passes do not have the luxury of this guardrail on the side. However, they do here, so that is a lot more settling feeling as you're going through these narrow, tiny stretches. High atop the pass, we find the ghost town of Independence, and you can actually pull off. There's a little parking area here, and then you can walk down on the trails toward the ghost town below. Now, just before the trailhead, make sure to check out this map. This is what it might have looked like back when it was alive and thriving. And notice there are a lot of different roadways through here and buildings. Now, there are only a few that remain today. And so, whenever we come to look at it, it looks vastly different than it did in these photos, which are attached right here. Just a few small buildings remain. Now, believe it or not, they believe that approximately $190,000 in the 1800s were actually pulled out of this place. So that would have been, in present day, millions. It had about 40 businesses and lots of transient traffic that would come in and out trying to find their fame and fortune. But again, it did start to disintegrate. Now, they do have these little books whenever you first come in at the trailhead itself. Pick one up. It's very useful. Inside the book, they do have a little special section about the Independence Ghost Town, including a small map that you can take with you as you walk around. It tells a little bit more about the history itself, and then also that they do some guided tours during the summer months, so that's pretty handy. Now, after you do make it down to the bottom, there are some more signs that actually help you to kind of figure out where you would be in the original site plan of the community. And right now, we are about where the downtown mid area would have been. So there would have been places to our both left and right. However, when we look at it, this is all that remains to the left. And as we go in this direction, you'll notice many of the footprints of the places just have a few small boards remaining to show us where something might have been. This is actually where the downtown area would have been, right here. Not much left. Now, remember how at the beginning of the video I said there are some limitations on the drive itself because of weather? Well, imagine living here. You are right smack dab in the middle of a valley that gets very cold during winter time. So the people who decided to settle in this area to find their fame and fortune would have had to have dealt with some pretty harsh conditions, to say the least. But it is kind of interesting to know that they were able to make it out here. And now we can see, you know, the little footprints of where they once were. Believe it or not, at one point in time in this very area right here, historical records indicate that there were 5 separate hotels and 1 boarding house. These were actually from the main business district, which would have been literally right here where we're looking at these last few boards. In fact, this one, if you look close enough, actually indicates that that was one of the hotels. Now, you would never know it now. However, at one point in time, that stack of lumber right there, that one, was said to be deluxe accommodations, the best of the best. And now, it's nothing but ruin. The corner of a building here, some more ruin. And then we get over to a building that actually is standing. Let's find out what this one is. Okay, so this sign right here says that this was a portion of the business district, and upon closer evaluation it says that there were at least 47 businesses. Now, on the previous sign it said 40, so there's some discrepancies here, but that's kind of how it goes when it comes to these older structures, especially whenever they're in poor conditions. Now, it looks like they have done some work on this one to actually secure it a bit so that we could actually have a structure to see, and they've actually gone in and reinforced some of the different things. And because it's not safe, they have locked it up. So we can't go in there. However, I do know that during guided tours, they open these up for the public. Now, with that said, this building that we're seeing behind us was actually the general store. So that's where you would find everything you could possibly need. And again, we've talked about this on some of our other videos, but we didn't have Walmart, Amazon, things like that. So if you had to actually get something to this store, there was no next day delivery. No. You would have to have a team of mules or horses carry it over the pass just for it to be available right here. And this would be a store that would have everything from your day-to-day necessities, things for you mining, clothing items, fabric for you to make things, everything. You still, even living in the community itself, when it was a thriving city, had to do a lot on your own. Up in this area, we find a couple of the houses that people might have stayed in, and the houses were just a little bitty box, so very, very small. But I think we're going to go down to the one that's just down the ways a little bit because it's actually in a little bit better shape. Now, as you can see, this one also has had some help on shoring up the structure for our viewing. And there are a few things that I want to point out with this building in just a moment. But first, we have another sign, and it has a really interesting photo right here. This depiction actually shows what it would have been like to be on that mountainside before the highway that we currently have. Do you see how narrow that is? Now, it is thought that Independence actually had two different booms kind of for finding things when it comes to mining. And the first one occurred a few years before the second one. Things had kind of started to dwindle, and then they struck it again. And so it kept the hope alive that Independence would in fact survive. But as we can see, it did not. In this window frame, we have a few items which might have been out here at that time. I am not sure. I've been seeing several pieces of broken glass, and that could have come after. However, some of these tin cans, it looks as though this might have been a piece to a light at one point in time. What was the final nail in the coffin of Independence? Believe it or not, it was that very winter that we were talking about earlier. The winter was, in fact, the worst winter ever experienced in this area. They had a blizzard that came through, and a mass exodus of everyone who was left here was on their way to Aspen, where we started out this morning. And it was said that after that, no one came back. Sadly, the tale of Independence is not all so different from the other ghost towns that we've been to. A lot of them were impacted by either the mining industry pulling out, the railroad leaving, or the horrible weather that they would find in the very beautiful mountains that we have been driving through all day. In fact, that is why, again, reference, the pass is not open all the time. Now, if you do come to Independence and would like to keep on exploring, you can actually do so. There are trails that head out just right over here and continue going all the way out to one of the mine site areas. You can find several different things in that direction, but it is quite a little bit of a walk. And then we also have some more in the opposite direction here that we are going to check out. Now, while we are in this little flat area here, we're at about 10,000 feet above sea level. It's not that bad, but to get back up to where the road is, that's going to take a little hiking. Now, the two buildings that we see here are about even with where we started our path, which was right over in this direction. Recent improvements to secure the structure are definitely in place, as is some wire so that we don't go inside. But you can definitely see why when you look a little bit closer. this building is actually starting to fall down. The roof itself, as well as the upper ceiling area, is actually bowed inward. So there are several different areas that they have secured inside as well. If you look very carefully, it looks as though they have replaced the roofing to try to keep the building as long as they possibly can, which is amazing because then we can come out here and see a building from the 1800s that once was a thriving something. I haven't found the sign for this one. Okay, this is in fact a miner's cabin, slightly bigger than the ones that we saw on the top of the hill, but very interesting. You can see there that they have a little bit of a hangover for the porch area of door, and there are windows on every side of this one. And just behind that we have another miner's cabin that is pretty small. So there was no consistent size or shape for the miners' cabins. Again, this one has a lot of decay and rot. There's no floor on these. They are in pretty bad shape for people to live in, obviously, but they are secure and they are safe for us to come out and view. And I really appreciate that. Now here is my question. Were these actually still somewhat intact and then they were able just to kind of fix them so that we could see them today? Or are these actually reconstructions altogether? I don't know. I have no idea. I just know it's interesting to see the different levels of preservation that they have kind of going on. Some of them, they've actually fixed up where they look like they would have in their prime. However, some of them like this are basically just secured to stay safe. So it does beg the question, were these the originals or are these duplicates? And that will be something that I address whenever I get some more cellular signal. I'll be Google fingering the Historical Society that actually takes care of this property and makes it where we can come out here. And I definitely encourage you all to do that as well. Now toward the back of the property here, we actually have this wonderful flowing stream just beyond this brushy area. And this sign right here, which actually talks about the 3 different ways where they would actually find gold. Panning became one of the quick ways for people to come out and try to find their fame and fortune. While some did strike it rich this way, it was a harder sell to find it in larger quantities. You would just find a chunk here and maybe a chunk there, if you were lucky. Hard rock mining was actually the process of extracting the gold from the veins inside of solid rocks. Now, this is where we're going to find more of our mines and things like that. And a lot of these were the more successful things at the time. There's also something called placer mining, which is unlike the hard rock mining. They actually have loose rock materials that mean that you don't have to necessarily go through and tunnel through the rocks. So this became something that was used quite a bit as well. And each and every one of those methods took place right here in Independence. So I think it's great that we were able to stop off on the Independence Pass and see this wonderful site that tells you a little bit of the history of the people who lived here, why they left, and what brought them to the area in the first place. But now it's time for us to get back onto the Scenic Pass and see what else we can find. Okay, adventurers, we made it to the Independence Pass, part of the Continental Divide, and now we're about to take a small little trail up toward the top so we can get some amazing views. Now this is epic. I've been up here before when there was a light snow cover before they actually closed the pass, and it was so quiet that you could hear every thought that you had. It was amazing. And there's these beautiful little mountain lakes up here too. So definitely stop. Now here's the parking lot and there's the little path that we go on. Now you're at about 12,000 feet, so the altitude is a little harsh up here. Take some water. Now, as you can see from these vantage points, you can see so much. Wow. And I think one of the coolest things is if you kind of start looking around, you can see pieces of the Continental Divide Trail that are kind of going up into the mountains on this side and then up to the peaks on this side too. Now that is something that I would love to be able to do. However, I just don't think at this point that that is in me. But we can still see the Continental Divide and be a part of it through the Independence Pass, which is super awesome. So let's go get some views from this vantage point. Okay guys, we can see the sign now and kind of figure out where we are in comparison to some of the places we have been before. And if you look at this and then you kind of span across this mountainscape right here, we can find some of our favorite places. In fact, if we are looking over here where the road kind of is and we kind of go to the peak right about here, that's actually the Leadville area where we've camped several times. And then if we go over just a bit to kind of where the road ends and then take like right about here, that's actually to Twin Lakes, which is 16.5 miles away, and that is where Independence Pass actually stops. Continuing this way, whenever we get over to this mountain in the distance back there, that snow-capped peak, that is actually the Buena Vista area, which means that the mountains that we see in front of us are the mountains that we've been exploring on some of our other episodes. And so now, as we go back downward, we kind of know where we're at. This is kind of amazing to go from the Aspen area all the way over to Twin Lakes and see this and kind of put it into perspective how far we have been and how far we are going to go. And as it continues, it's only going to get more and more beautiful. Now it is later in the afternoon and there's a storm coming in tomorrow, so it's starting to get a little bit more cloudy. But even with that, still amazing. Okay, adventurers, I hope you enjoyed coming with me today. I did want to give you one heads up before we wrap up the video. If you are wanting to do the Independence Pass, definitely make sure that you check out the Colorado Department of Transportation. They have some really great information on here, including the average times that they are open. So typically it says it closes on or near November 7th and opens the Thursday before Memorial Day in May, weather permitting, of course. And it does have some additional restrictions on here for oversized or overweight vehicles. And then also on here you can find if they are having any kind of rock slides, rock impediments, or any kind of construction. But all in all, I wanted to share with you that pass doesn't always have to mean four-wheel drive. Sometimes you can be in a regular vehicle, just like Dimples here, that doesn't have the highest of clearance and still be able to go over a pass. The main thing is just kind of knowing what kind of pass that you're on and what to expect. And you can find all of that information on the Colorado Department of Transportation and then also the Department of Tourism. They actually have a really cool list on the Department of Tourism of all the scenic byways, and on there it tells you if you can make it in just like a regular vehicle like this. I love it. It's kind of awesome. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed coming along with me today for this scenic drive. I know I have enjoyed taking you on it. I had an absolute blast. That is one of my favorite passes in all of Colorado, and I hope you can see why. Until next time, guys. Bye!